last segment, I'm going to jam a few of your patient calls in before Gibber Griffin joins us with Balance the Transmission. Hey, just side issue before we get into this briefly, what you saw with the military commissions meeting as they try to legitimize the joke they're carrying out. Because you can't just stage the attack. You've then got to stage trials of innocent people, and that's now coming out. What do you think of it coming out? Obama's chief science advisor admitting the whole end game and sterilization and poisoning the water and taking people's kids and a planetary government. I mean, these people mean business.
They mean more than business, Alex. This is something that's been taking place well before even the Obama administration got into power. This has been taking place in our government, in the clandestine government that operates behind the public government that we are aware of. This has been taking place for decades, okay?
Yes.
I was in the military myself. I know what goes on. And the fact is that when we hear things on through the mainstream media, we have got to look at that critically. And we have got to go to the sources and find out what are they really telling us. And when I went into this military commission's hearing for the family members, I was already told by other family members that went there that, you know, they're going to just try to fluff it up and they're going to try to, well, you know what, Alex, it was a textbook example of what propaganda is. The verbiage that they used with the family members, the fact that they called people evil and they called the people that they were no good and that they were out to kill us and that they want to continue to kill us.
So in a supposed jury type situation, they're using terms like evil and bad and they're guilty.
Well, they're explaining to the family members. They give us a packet of the charges. They give us a number of documents that are going to support their case when they get to Guantanamo. They're defending the military commissions as opposed to going through federal courts. They're saying we have a very strong case. And, Alex, I'm going to tell you something. I asked questions that nobody in that room was asking, and I literally was shocked at how they couldn't answer some of these questions. On this list that they gave us, they mentioned a lot of issues when it comes to the 4 people that they're prosecuting, and then Mohammed Atta and the hijacker, alleged hijackers and related. And I see Osama bin Laden's name mentioned. So I asked the direct question, what evidence do we have against Osama bin Laden? There was a pause. And I want to tell you, this pause happened many a time through the questions I was asking.
And by the way, for those that don't know, the FBI doesn't even list him on the most wanted for 9/11. He is not even listed for 9/11.
Well, that was what was brought up because I had mentioned that. I said, what evidence do you have against him? They just got finished saying that the FBI helped them out tremendously, that they helped them out so much in gathering the evidence. I said, what evidence do you have against Osama bin Laden? I said, because the FBI website does not even mention that he's wanted for 9/11. Another great long pause. Now, let me tell you, a lot of people on the prosecution, you tried to answer at the same time. They got flustered, and they were saying, where did you hear that from? And where did you get that from? And I'm like, let me ask you this. How come Mohammed Atta, the transfer that he received from the ISI chief, about a year before 9/11, how come that's not mentioned in here? How come you're not bringing evidence into this case that would put foreign governments, in a position where, hey, they have to begin to answer questions what happened? They were silent, okay? They couldn't answer I asked them about Sybil Edmonds, Alex. When I asked them about Sybil Edmonds, I said, what about the evidence that she's brought up? Are you going to use this in the trial? They had the gall to say to every family member that they have no idea who Sybil Edmonds is. Meanwhile, she worked as a translator. These are people, and I'm going to tell you this, Alex. When I mentioned Sybil Edmonds, one of the gentlemen that was on this prosecution team went to the rest of them and said, mouth this. That's closed, meaning they knew exactly who she was.
Stay there. Back in 1 minute. This is Keys. Back in 1 minute. Oh, we just got a few minutes left with Manny Badillo. Then we've got the legend fighting the New World Order. Gibber Griffin joining us to balance the hour, and the folks that have been holding, you're going to talk to Griffin. So we save the best for last. You get to hold, but get to talk to him. We all want to hear from everybody and appreciate folks that I meant to get the calls earlier in the hour. I was just covering all the eugenics news, never got around to some of those calls. Going back to Manny Badillo. Okay, so you're in this meeting. Tell us where it was, what was happening. You're writing an article for Infowars.com. We're going to get very, very soon. Just make sure I don't miss that when it comes. In fact, ballpark, when are we getting that article so we can post it, Manny?
You're going to be getting that within the next couple of days. I'm still waiting to hear back from some of the prosecution team that asked me to email them about this evidence, which could very easily be found by simple Internet searches.
Well, they always say that. We didn't know that bin Laden had been CIA. It's just BBC, AP, Reuters. But we didn't know NORAD stood down that day. And there were drills of hijacked jets flying into the buildings. But all that aside, where were you? You got invited. What else did you ask them? Because you told us in the end they were telling you shut up.
Yeah, essentially they were saying, listen, where did you get that from? You email us. That's it. It comes down to this. I brought up the fact that the case that the family members brought all the way to the Supreme Court that the Supreme Court refused to listen to as of last week. 7,000 family members with the evidence against Saudi Arabia. I asked them if they were going to, how strong of a case they would have had if they had that evidence. I also said to them 70% of our questions were never answered during the commission. Is this going to be another sham trial that the family members then have to go through and then expect to have some sort of justice? And I said to them this, I said, does anybody here really feel that it was only 5 people that did this? Silence. Alex, there had to be at least 4 or 5 times the silence, and that's why it's so important that the mission of nyccan.org is accomplished.
Exactly, but and we'll have you back on about that, but I want to continue in the limited time with this. Because talking to you over the phone, my producer said that you also said that at one point they just said, look, be quiet, shut up. We've heard enough from you. Where did you hear this information?
Exactly. They were asking me where it came from. I was telling them this is AP, Reuters source. I was telling them this comes from intelligence agencies. The Indian Intelligence Agency actually spoke about...
Did you tell them about Springman, the head of the visa in Saudi Arabia, and he's being told, let out and them in, they're CIA?
That I didn't have an opportunity to, but this is something else that I can continue to correspond with them on. I'm going to tell you something.
I mean, this is on record that the hijackers were all trained at U.S. military bases in super high clearance. That's AP. I mean, this is a fact. I mean, that the embassies wouldn't let them in, and they'd say, let them in. These are high-level operatives. Yes, sir. I mean, case closed. They did it. It's over.
And case closed this. I actually, and I commented a few times to a few of my close friends about how that the next night I was on a conference call with Candace Gorman. She is one of the defendants of 3 of the people that are being accused during the sham 9/11 trial that's taking place starting this week down in Guantanamo. So I listened to her conference call. I had an opportunity to ask questions there, and I said, what type of facts is the government bringing up, and how do you feel you can successfully defend them? She goes, I know I can defend them because there are no facts they're bringing up. It's all hearsay. So, I thought about this, Alex. I was one of maybe 6 billion people in the world that got to hear both the prosecution side, the defense's side, and the week before going to trial, with the exception of our clandestine intelligence agencies, I got to understand a hell of a lot more about how this is going to take place. This is going to be something that the media is going to report on here and there because they don't want us to critically think about what happened.
To be a total kangaroo, you also told us that they admitted they have no evidence, but Obama admits that. He says they may be found not guilty, but we're still going to keep them. I mean, that's freedom.
Well, this is what happens. We have the Military Commissions Act. We have the Patriot Act. We have all these different acts which are constantly suffocating Americans' rights and the Constitution. What are we going to do about it? Are we going to stand up and do something about it like you, myself, and so many others are doing? Or are we going to sit back and say, okay, let them do this? No.
Manny Badillo, you are a badass for freedom. I know you got some secret stuff you can't talk about right now, but we'll have you on next week or at the end of the week. After that big announcement happens, keep it up. You're going to bring the murderers to justice. We're right beside you and right behind you. Go with God. Vaya con Dios.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
There goes Manny Badillo, folks. We'll be right back with G. Edward Griffin. Don't want to miss that.